What's up everybody, Jared here with carbuzz.com, and today I am finally getting to drive the all-new 2023 Toyota Prius. As we saw last month at the LA Auto Show, the Prius has been completely redesigned for the 5th generation, and Toyota has completely thrown out everything that you are familiar with the Prius. It is no longer an ugly blemish that stains the road. It is now a gorgeous fuel-efficient hybrid. It has this new design from Japan where they basically decided we want the Prius to be a good-looking car, and I think the designers have truly succeeded with something here. The one we're looking at is a limited, the highest grade version of the Prius in this gorgeous reservoir blue. I went out of my way to grab one of the vehicles that Toyota had in a good color. You can also get it in supersonic red that is quite looking, but I really do like this reservoir blue. It just fills into that whole hybrid nature of the car, blue, efficiency. You can tell we have these cool sort of wraparound C-shaped headlights that I like a lot. I'm getting a lot of second gen Volt from the front, just how the front end sleeks down. It has a 0.27 drag coefficient, which is part of how this vehicle gets such good fuel economy, which we'll talk about a little bit later. We've got kind of this silver bronze-ish accent down here that I think looks really nice, and we do have LED headlights here on this model. Because we have the limited, you're gonna get these larger 19-inch wheels. 17-inch wheels are what you're gonna get standard on the Prius. I wasn't able to see those because they didn't have any base LE trims, but they tell me it's like the old Prius where there's like a wheel cap over it and you can take that off. And there might even be a cool design under there, but unfortunately, I just haven't seen it. We do have an all-wheel drive badge positioned right behind there. You can get any of the 3 Prius trim levels, the LE, XLE, or Limited, with or without all-wheel drive, and you'll know to look for this little badge to make sure that you have it or don't have it, but we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get the Prius out on the road. You can tell that the shape is just so different from the outgoing one. It's so much lower and wider than the outgoing car, and it just lends itself to a much better looking design. I really like how the rear end here kind of slopes down. The old Prius was always known for just kind of going up and up and up and up and then just stopping and then going down. You can see how this one has a much more tapered roof line that just looks a whole lot prettier when you view it from the side as we're doing now. It's a little bit longer overall, but really not much longer than the outgoing Prius. You can see we have standard door handles here up front, and we have kind of these hidden ones up on the upper portion of the rear door here. We've got a glass roof that does not open. The Prius Prime is also going to have a solar panel up there to power things like the air conditioning. One big change you'll notice is that the split rear window from the outgoing model is gone. I didn't honestly love that too much because it was one of those things where the crossbar was always just in your field of vision, and it was a little bit annoying to view out the back. I much prefer this new design, as we'll see from the inside. And at the back, we have some important things to note here. So in addition to the one piece of glass that I think looks really nice, we have this really cool LED light that just goes across the back end. I think it looks very sleek. You have your model designation here. So we have the Limited, which is why it says LTD. Nope, this is not a Ford LTD. LTD stands for Limited. We have Prius written across the back in big lettering, and we have an HEV badge. So Toyota, this is the new badge that they're going to be putting on all of their electrified vehicles. So you're going to either have it say HEV Prime if it's a plug-in hybrid, or BEV is what the BZ4X is going to have in the next model year. And we can go ahead and lift up the trunk, where we're gonna see on the Limited and XLE trims, you're only gonna have about 20 cubic feet of storage space. You get a little bit more on the base LE trim. It does that annoying beep when you open it. I absolutely hate that. We do have the power tailgate here because we have the Limited. It's gonna be a manual one on the LE and XLE trims. You can see the trunk is pretty good, just nothing substantial. It's actually a little bit smaller than the outgoing Prius. So that is one area where this new Prius, because it's better looking, is going to be just actually a little bit worse than the outgoing one in terms of practicality. Now let's check out the interior, where Toyota has made a lot of changes just in terms of the overall layout. compared to the outgoing Prius. Because we have the Limited, we have this nice soft tex leather interior. I really like this gray finish that we have here on this particular one with the blue exterior. You have this little silver lining here on the seat. If you get the Prius Prime, you're gonna get some red accents on the seat and the dash, giving it a more sporty touch, at least on the upper end Prius Prime, but we don't have one of those here at this drive event to compare it to. You can tell we have this sort of very futuristic looking steering wheel. I believe it's the same one that you get in the BZ4X, and you have this little gauge cluster up here that is very similar to what we'll see on the BZ4X. You get an 8-inch touchscreen as standard on the Prius, but we have the larger 12.3-inch display, which is standard on the Limited, available on the XLE. We also have push button start, so I'm gonna go ahead and start it all up for you. You see that screen boots up. This one's going to take just a hot second to go up. We do have the new Toyota connected infotainment system. So you can see it is very devoid of buttons. The only thing we have here is a little volume knob. Everything else is handled on the screen here. I have not seen what the 8-inch screen actually looks like. I'm not sure if it has any more physical controls than this regular one is, but this is what the 12.3-inch screen looks like. You can see the information that we have up here above the steering wheel. Not a huge fan of this display. Depending on how tall you are, you might see that the steering wheel cuts off a small portion of the screen. Now, luckily, there's no information there, but it is just a little bit annoying, at least to my eye, having the steering wheel kind of block that a little bit. But there's really nothing wrong with the design. It kind of just depends on how big you are or how small you are as a person and where you position the wheel. The infotainment, not much is new here, so I'm going to go ahead and skip over that and just talk about what we get here on the Limited. We've got single zone automatic climate control, no dual zone available on the Prius, but we do have some new features like heated and ventilated seats. I believe this is the first time the Prius has been available with ventilated seats. We've got 2 USB-C ports down here, very forward thinking for Toyota. We have a little storage area here that you can actually lift up, and you can get some hidden storage down there. And it actually says, I believe it says hidden, what is it said? Hidden compartment, hashtag hidden compartment. That is kind of an interesting little Easter egg that I didn't recall it saying. We've got our cup holders here. We have our traditional familiar like Prius controller here to put it in reverse. When you have the Limited, you are going to get this surround view camera rather than just a backup camera. And it does do the thing that we first saw on Lexus, where you'll see it'll actually make the car invisible, so you can see kind of the white line underneath the car as you drive it around a little bit. Behind that, we have this wireless charger. I think it's actually like a pretty good wireless charger. It has these little clamps to hold your phone in, and because it's positioned like this, your phone's not gonna fall out of it when you go through a corner, so that's quite nice. We do have an EV mode, but it only works for like a mile at like speeds of up to like 20 miles an hour, and you know, same as other Toyota hybrid vehicles. This is not a plug-in hybrid vehicle. You'll have to wait for the Prime to go a little further on electric only power. We also have a JBL audio system here on the Limited, and we do have a feature where we have the digital camera mirror. You can see that's the view out of the back. It is a little cut off because it's kind of like a semicircle, but when you have the digital camera, that is going to give you a much larger view out of the back. So that's basically the interior in a nutshell. We do have 6 USB ports throughout the cabin, and I think they are all USB-Cs, which is kind of interesting. But now I'll show you the back area, where I mentioned that the trunk space is actually a little bit less on this new Prius than it was on the outgoing model. And we're gonna see a similar story here in the back seat. The legroom is fine. It's comparable to the old Prius. We also have heated seats back here on the Limited and 2 USB-C ports. You're gonna see we have a sunroof back here that we can kind of close and open independent of that front one. But the way that this roof is, it's kind of low here and then it kind of raises up right here. The headroom is not fantastic, honestly. If you're above 5'10", you might find it a little bit cramped back here. So if you are buying this as like an Uber driving vehicle, I think that the outgoing Prius was actually a little bit better in this regard, but as a personal vehicle, or if you're short or you're just gonna put kids back here, the back seat is absolutely fine. All right, so at this point in the video, I hop into the car and drive it, but Toyota actually had the old Prius for a comparison, so I took it out for a quick spin to remind myself how much I absolutely hated this car. It only has 121 horsepower, which means we're going up a hill now. I'm gonna floor it. I'm not really going anywhere. I'm not going any faster. Come on. I got amazing fuel economy, but at what cost? It was horrible to look at. It was loud inside. The steering is so lackadaisical and sloppy. There is zero fun to be had here. It was great if you just wanted a commuter car, best fuel economy possible, and you didn't care how it drove, but it was so boring to drive. Let's see if the new Prius can be an improvement over this one, because honestly, anything is an upgrade from this. All right, so now that we've hopped behind the wheel of the old Prius, let's go ahead and see how big of an improvement Toyota has made with this new one. And we're gonna start with the powertrain, where instead of a 1.8 liter engine, we now have a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. We also have a new lithium-ion battery, and just like the outgoing Prius, that is driven via a planetary gear set. Toyota also calls it an e-CVT. All you need to know about that is basically it's going to function like e-CVT. You floor it, you don't have any shifts or anything like that. It's just going to be a direct drive to either the front wheels, or you can get optional all-wheel drive on this new Prius, just like you could on the outgoing model. Power is way up from the outgoing generation. The front-wheel drive version of the car, which is what we are driving right now, has 194 horsepower. To put that in perspective, the outgoing Prius only had 121 horsepower. So huge power increase there. And Toyota has done that via the larger engine, and we also have a more powerful electric motor than the last generation. That's going to drop the 0 to 60 time from about 9.8 seconds in the outgoing Prius to just 7.2 seconds. In other words, this new Prius is about as quick as a Mark V Volkswagen GTI, which is kind of crazy when you think about it that way. It's 60% more power than the outgoing generation. And about 150 horsepower of that total 194 is coming from the engine itself. It was only 111, or it's 111 from the motor, but they kind of combine in like a weird way if you're curious. You can't just sort of add those two numbers together. If you get all-wheel drive, you're gonna get an electric motor on the rear axle, just like you did in the outgoing Prius. It's gonna increase horsepower by 2, so you're gonna get 196 horsepower total. It'll drop your 0 to 60 time a little bit to just 7 seconds flat. So again, this is one of the quickest, this is easily the quickest Prius that we have ever seen before, which is really cool. But they've managed to make it more efficient as well. So if you get the front-wheel drive LE, you're going to get 57 mpg combined. That is the most fuel efficient Prius that there has ever been. And if you get all-wheel drive, it's going to drop to 54, which is still an excellent number. And these are just Toyota estimates. We don't have the official EPA numbers just yet. So I imagine that being able to drive this around in a flat area like Florida, where I live, and not this hilly San Diego area, you might be able to get pretty close to 60 mpg. But I'll have to wait to spend an entire week with the Prius to find out. So now we've got a little bit of a stop sign here, so let's go ahead and throw it into sport mode. I'm gonna see how it accelerates. Woo, you know, it's definitely not a barn-burning type of car, but that is way quicker than the outgoing generation, which you would floor it and just feel like you're not going anywhere. And yes, there is a sport mode in this car. You've got normal, sport, eco, and you also have a custom mode as well, which is kind of interesting. And let's finish talking about fuel economy while we're at it. So I mentioned 57 mpg combined. That's going to be just for the LE trim level. If you step up to a nicer one like the mid-level XLE trim or this limited trim that we're driving, you're going to go down to 52 mpg combined. So a decent 5 mpg drop there. Larger wheels, more features and things like that. And if you add all-wheel drive on top of that, you're going to be dropping down to about 49 mpg. And unfortunately, it won't be available at launch, so I haven't had a chance to drive it yet, but Toyota will also offer a plug-in hybrid version of the Prius, just like they did in the outgoing generation, called the Prius Prime. Now the Prius Prime obviously is going to add a plug, so you're going to be getting some all-electric range. We don't have any like EPA or official numbers yet, but Toyota is projecting about a 50% range increase over the outgoing model, which could do about 25 miles on a charge. So 50%, 25, so it should do about 37-ish miles on an electric only range, which is pretty good for a plug-in hybrid. So I'm really excited to drive that one. It's gonna have the same engine, 2-liter 4-cylinder, but with the more powerful electric motor, you're gonna get 220 horsepower. That's almost like a 50% increase over the outgoing Prius Prime. 0 to 60 in that one is only gonna take 6.6 seconds. So that is really quick. I'm very excited to give the Prime a drive later next year in 2023. But let's talk about this regular Prius and how it drives, because we have some windy roads right here, and I honestly am flabbergasted at how well this car is taking them. It's not a sports car by any restraint, but it kind of feels like a Corolla or a Camry. The steering is decently accurate. There's a little bit of deadness on center, especially in normal mode. You can kind of get rid of it, honestly. If you put it in sport mode, you can feel that the ratio tightens up a little bit. But if I were driving the outgoing Prius on this exact road, I would be flopping to the left and flopping to the right, and I'm just not feeling that here. This is so well controlled. The power is so much more readily available. I can make passing maneuvers without feeling like, oh my God, I'm clogging up the lane that I'm in because I have no power underneath the hood. I'm overall just very impressed with how the new Prius drives. They really had nowhere to go but up, but honestly, they went way up. That is my honest opinion. And for the first time ever, I think that you can drive a Prius and you can treat it as something other than an appliance. This is actually a reasonably fun car to drive. It's a reasonably good looking car. Honestly, I think it's actually a very good looking car, and the interior is much nicer than we've seen before. Overall, this is one of the biggest automotive glow-ups that I think I've ever seen. All right, so that was the 2023 Toyota Prius. Let's wrap up by talking about how much you'll pay for it. The base LE with front-wheel drive is going to ring in at $27,450. It's about $1,000 more than the outgoing Prius, but you're getting a much better looking car with a lot more power. So honestly, I don't think it's too much to pay given this vehicle's massive improvement. If you want the XLE trim, which is a lot more feature content, that's going to be $30,895, and the fully loaded limited trim that we're looking at here is $34,465, and then there are some options that you can add on top of that. And if you want all-wheel drive, if you live in a snowy climate and you need the extra grip, it's going to add $1,400 to any of those three prices that I've already mentioned. We do not yet have pricing for the Prius Prime, which is going to come in SE, XSE, and XSE premium trims. I expect it to be significantly more expensive than the regular Prius. It will no longer qualify for a federal tax credit because it will not be built here in the United States, but that is all content for a later video. In summation, for the regular Prius, I can't believe how much of an automotive glow up we have seen here. They took the Prius from being one of the ugliest things on the road to being extremely attractive while improving the fuel economy and increasing the performance to a level that we have never seen before. This is such an improvement that honestly, if I were looking for the most fuel efficient daily driver I could find, I would actually consider buying a Prius for myself. And that is something that I could never say about the previous generation. So you can tell how strong of an improvement Toyota has really made here. I really hope you've enjoyed this first drive review of the 2023 Toyota Prius. To read my full opinion, be sure to check out carbuzz.com for my written first drive review. And as always, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and ring that notification bell to be alerted of our latest videos. I'll see you next time.